Episode 291, Quicksilvering to the Sea. This is the Change Underground. I'm your host, John Moore. Decarbonise the air, recarbonise the soil. There's a link in the show notes and an embedded video version over on the website in the transcript of this episode that I would urge everyone to look at. It shows billions of tonnes of topsoil pouring from the Tweed River, the border between Queensland and New South Wales on Australia's east coast. This is following the recent flooding. It's worth remembering that the Tweed is one of more than 15 rivers in such a state. The east coast has had lots of rain before the system that forced the flooding. Systems, because they just kept getting hit. Because we're in a La Nina weather pattern that's supposed to last, according to the Bureau, until the end of autumn. That being said, more flooding is possible. One of my old schools has a floodplain area of football fields, and I saw a photo on the Book of Faces showing these underwater for the first time since 1974, the last really big flood in Brisbane. There have been other floods, of course, but this was the really big one. So this time around, the speed of water level rise was what caught people out. In a town called Lismore, a bit south of the Tweed and the Pick, waters rose so quickly and so high people were trapped in the crawl spaces between their ceilings and their roofs. And most of those were saved by locals in open aluminium boats with outboard motors breaking in to save them. The flood stretched from northern Queensland to south of Sydney in those 1,500, maybe 2,500 k's. The speed saw some dairy farmers unable to move their flocks to safety, and 70 plus years of breeding washed away, sometimes in front of the farmers. Just imagine seeing your cows washing away like that. A bit like the fires of 2019-2020, these floods are bigger than anything seen before, and in a few ways. Both the rise in water levels and the sheer area under flood were beyond anything previously recorded. And that's a fairly amazing turnaround from fires to floods. Now, the bush tends to bounce back quickly from fires, but these were different. We had, therefore, undervegetated catchments from the fires, unprecedented amounts of water, and topsoil quicksilvering to the sea. After that much rain, there will be a huge growth in vegetation ready to dry off for the next round of El Nino-induced fires. The other things these rains did was downgrade the record wheat harvest in quality. Much of the bumper crop will now only be good enough for animal feed. Less than a month later, Ukrainian and Russian wheat supplies to the world have been curtailed. And something about Russian oil and gas supplies rings a bell too. Nothing seems to be as it should be. What's to be done? Well, the higher fuel prices should drive more people to electrify their transport. Anything from electric push bikes all the way to tractors and semi-trailers. To be fair, the semis would probably be better on hydrogen, but you get the picture. There is a desperate need to decentralise electric energy production and distribution, more along the lines of the interwebs rather than the centralised power station systems most developed countries have. And we do need to electrolyse everything. I mean, seriously, everything. That removes the possibility of the poor around the world being shafted every time fossil fuel prices spike. Removing fossil fuels will also have knock-on effects for agriculture. At present, somewhere between 65 and 75% of all food is produced on farms of 1 hectare or less around the world. This is a difficult thing for us in the developed world to get our heads around, but it is so. And that's why the seeds, fertilisers, pesticides and herbicides developed for broad-scale agriculture are such a poor fit for the small farmers of the world. Yet those small farmers can teach us all. From the website Journey to Forever and its page on small farms, quote, "Sustainable farms are small, they're mixed. Mixed crops, mixed trees and mixed livestock, with all three mixed together in an integrated pattern that mimics natural biodiversity and reaps the benefits of collaborating with nature. The main benefit is health. Healthy soil, healthy crops and livestock and healthy yields, along with low input costs. This kind of farming is intense and needs close management. And since they're usually family farms, this is why they're small. Family can't manage a bigger farm properly. And anyway, there's no need to. Mixed family farms provide sustenance, food security and a healthy surplus for sale or barter. They far outproduce the bigger mechanised farms. End quote. And this change is happening. The growing number of regenerative farmers, even if they don't know it, are having an effect. Because it all starts with cover crops. Farmers see their soils washing away and cover cropping is the obvious solution. Keeping the soil covered increasing the tree cover using hedgerows, protecting waterways and returning to a live soil approach removes the need for the fossil fuel-based inputs in the first place. We need to do these things for climate reasons, but they are also mitigation efforts. By reforesting the hillsides of catchments, keeping the soil covered, we slow the water down. It percolates into the soil rather than running down the slope, which takes soil particles with it. This doesn't mean there'll never be floods, it just means that they'll be less severe. Because at the moment all those little flows are what created the image on the website. And we can stop most of it by following the example of small farmers and still grow food, make a living and reduce greenhouse gases. Now if that's not a win-win, I don't know what is. And to do this we can all do a little bit, from changing suburban lawns to gardens, or at least replacing the monoculture of lawn grasses with a mixed clover profile. Doing this we cut back on mowing, we provide food for bees and get to feel clover under our bare feet. This last point is one of life's truly underestimated glories. As we move from the suburban lawn areas to larger plots, the same thing applies. Clovers, mini hedgerows of perennial herbs and dwarf fruit trees and chooks and ducks and so on. I think we can all see where this is headed. On the rangelands, the intermediate plant species, saltbush, the acacia, the hazel, can pioneer the way for larger fruit trees, timber, beauty, diversity and all that, or just to climb up or sit under. This vision is possible. Remember the Great Green Wall from episode 288, link in the show notes. Imagine that across the temperate regions of the world. 15 kilometre deep wall of trees, followed by, say, a 30 kilometre wide strip of agricultural land with scattered trees, hedgerows and orchards, and then another 15 kilometre strip of tree cover and so on. Well, not necessarily in strips like a well-mown sports field, but adjusted to the terrain and waterways. I see this as a future we can all grasp and work towards. And I think we should. So we need to put pressure on our politicians. We need to actually start planting ourselves. Now, if you'd like to support this podcast, I have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes and at the website. And all coffees are gratefully accepted. Decarbonise the air, recarbonise the soil. Thank you all for listening. I'll be back next week.